Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is a 2004 RPG where you play as a recently embraced vampire fledgeling who gets caught in the middle of a complex vampire conspiracy involving several factions and an ancient sarcophagus. It has a reputation as a cult classic. It's well written, has plenty of fleshed out, memorable characters. The locations feel gritty, realistic, and kinda scummy. As someone who's been to LA, they did a great job of showing how much of a shithole that city is.
Hurry on your way to the apocalypse! Always room for heathens in the cold and oily pits of the damned!
It also has a reputation for not working. At all. I can only imagine how unstable it was at release. Since 2004 there have been various fan patches and reworks, but after all this time, does it work? Yeah. Kind of. This game was sent out to die. Brian Mitsoda, one of the game's designers, stated that the game had to compete against Halo 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, and Half-Life 2. So it got lost in the shuffle. The game's downfall is a tale as old as time. Small indie dev, small budget, troubled development, and most importantly, an overbearing publisher.
Wow, I'm the best.
It reviewed well and had bad sales. So while it's still an incredible game, it's a bit raw. The GOG version comes with the unofficial patch already installed, which is the version I went with. There's also the Plus patch, which adds some removed content, like cut quest lines and missing weapons. Before you start, you choose from 7 different vampire races, which all have different abilities, character interactions, and in some cases a really tedious traversal system. Brujah are physically strong, naturally rebellious, and generally have short tempers.
If I ever get my hands on her, I'll tie her eyelashes to her ass hairs and bowl her ass into a car compactor.
Gangrel are feral, animalistic loners who specialize in shapeshifting.
Pleasure meeting your acquaintance.
Malkavians are mentally unstable, but their madness comes with a gift of foresight through complex and often unclear thoughts.
Why is he smiling? The father. Is it the father behind him?
Nosferatu are disfigured recluses who live underground. They specialize in stealth and security.
The Nosferatu are the eyes and ears of the Camarilla, so they take care of us.
Toreador are charismatic and attractive. They're known for being more empathetic towards the mortals than the other vampires.
Once you found out who, kill the traitor. But do not touch David.
Tremere are physically weak, but compensate with blood magic. Ventru are the aristocrats of the vampire world. They generally find themselves in leadership positions.
I've shown you great clemency. Prove it was more than a wasted gesture, fledgling.
I'll be going in as Tremere, because I've never actually used blood magic before. Then you're going to pick your stats, and here you get quite a bit of flexibility. 3 different ways of fighting, hacking, sneaking, 3 different kinds of manipulation and seduction, intimidation, and persuasion, and to top it off, vampire powers. They range from mind control, misdirection, invisibility, and all kinds of crazy stuff. Blood and life are your 2 main resources. Life is self-explanatory. Lose it and you get your final death. Blood is used for vampiric powers, but if it gets too low, you go kinda crazy. After you've picked a race, you see your character getting ready to sleep with someone, but instead they get embraced, which is against vampire law. Suddenly, you're incapacitated and brought to trial, and your chances of getting out are pretty slim. The group we're dealing with are called the Camarilla, a vampire society who work to keep the vampire's existence a secret by upholding the masquerade, a system used to judge whether or not a vampire's actions violate their secrecy.
Keep our secrets secret and you make things easier on all of us. We're living in the age of cell phone cameras. Fuck-ups ain't tolerated.
I think this introduction might just be my favorite intro scene of any video game. There's a lot going on here. Standing on the podium is LaCroix, the Ventru Prince of LA. He leads the trial, and the way he speaks is verbose and kinda pompous.
Know that I am no more adjudicator than I am a servant to the law that governs us all.
Sitting right at the front and looking up in disgust at LaCroix is Nines Rodriguez, the de facto leader of the Anarchs, a group of vampires who follow the masquerade but hate the politics of the Camarilla.
This is bullshit!
The fact that he's sitting so close to LaCroix and willing to criticize him to his face is very telling. Standing off to the side and leaning against a pillar is smiling Jack. He's a bit of a loner, even amongst the other anarchs.
Fuck man, he's Jack. Jack just does his thing. God help anyone who gets in the way.
He ends up being our tutorial character, who in the end wants us to make up our own mind about our allegiance.
Why don't you let me show you the ropes? What do you say?
Looking bored and checking his non-existent watch, Isaac sits wearing a suit, which is unusual for an anarchist, but that's how he carries himself.
Very courteous of you to stop by. All kindred that enter my domain are expected to introduce themselves.
It's pretty clear that he has no respect for LaCroix.
That baby-faced two-bit Prince LaCroix got something to say to me?
Sitting across from him is Therese Vorman, a Camarilla woman who, despite wearing business clothes, makes a silly face to Isaac, which is actually really nice foreshadowing, if you know.
So unclean! You're one to talk, dear sister.
Wearing almost nothing, the anarchist Velvet Velour can't look as LaCroix orders the execution. She blows a kiss towards a man on a balcony, showing her disinterest in the politics of the Camarilla.
Oh, I forget sometimes the two-faced nature of our blood.
The man on the balcony is Maximilian Strauss, who seems to brush off Velvet's kiss. He's a high-ranking member of the Camarilla, hence the balcony. He also leads the Tremere clan. He keeps his cards close to his chest, which is shown by his really subtle reactions.
Tremere guard their secrets well. Perhaps it is something we will speak of later.
Obviously, if it's your first time playing the game, you're not really going to know any of these things, but once you beat it and go back and watch it again, it's honestly impressive how much foreshadowing is in this scene. So LaCroix executes our sire, but after seeing Nines protest his actions, he actually decides to let us go. Probably just to appease the anarchs. He tells us to go to Santa Monica to work for one of his underlings, who is a bit messed up.
Oh, I can feel a draft on my fucking insides. They shanked me, the bastards.
And we're thrown into the streets as a new, inexperienced vampire, which is not good.
Then they just plop you out here like a naked baby in the woods. How about that?
Thankfully, Smiling Jack shows us the ropes. He ends up showing us how to hack, draw blood, sneak, and fight. But one thing that you're going to notice is that the combat is bad. Really bad. Melee and unarmed forces you into third person. Despite that, it feels floaty, for lack of a better word. Juggling enemies looks goofy, they always seem to fly off in the worst positions, and they're invulnerable when they're prone, which is incredibly frustrating. Melee weapons and unarmed feel horrible. Sadly, the gunplay didn't fare much better. If you've played the original Deus Ex, you'll know how it works. The guns take a long time to focus. So if you don't invest in the skill, you're gonna have a bad time. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think going with guns makes the game a lot easier. Don't get me wrong, it still feels bad, the recoil feels bizarre and the enemies are still invulnerable when they're prone, but I think it's the better option, because at least guns feel more responsive than wild swings. Also, some of the boss fights are ridiculous bullet sponges, which usually isn't fun. I ended up picking Tremere because I wanted to try a different way of fighting, but I found out pretty quick that blood magic is no substitute for a firearm. After an encounter with the Sabbat, a group of vampires who hate the Camarilla and the Masquerade, a cab driver drops you off in Santa Monica. So, check your PC and your mail and work off your debt to the Camarilla. The main quest follows the discovery of a sarcophagus and the politics of the surrounding factions. But when you're not busy running errands for LaCroix, you can get a few side quests, such as tracking down people for a bounty hunter.
Why don't you go look for him, just real quick? I'll pay you for your time.
Or even following the trail of a serial killer.
Stay the fuck back! I did nothing to you!
The game doesn't use map markers, and honestly it doesn't need to. The areas are relatively small, the buildings are distinct, and if you're really lost, you can just check a local bus map, or the sewer chart. When you check a computer, you're given DOS prompts that you need to type in. So, anytime you're using a computer, it's you typing. Which might seem like a silly thing to praise, but it really adds something. The game made me feel like a genius when I used an internet cafe to get information on a dead Hollywood star. Strangely enough, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines might be one of the best detective games I've ever played. Contrary to the vampirism, the characters you run into feel alive. Trip, the stoner from the Santa Monica pawn shop.
You, looking to buy or sell or...
Fat Larry, who deals weapons downtown in his truck.
Player, what's the score? How they hang? Good evening and all that commotion.
Chunk, the dim-witted but well-meaning security guard who works for LaCroix.
Yeah, you have a good power meeting, or whatever it is you types do up there.
And that psycho cannibal vampire who was hunting for relics.
If a man walks into a tiger's domain, it may result in his being devoured. So it has.
They all have distinct designs and dialect, and even though the face models are low fidelity, I think they look really good.
I know the ending. It will end over and over until I cease to dream.
As it turns out, working for LaCroix isn't going to make you the most popular vampire, but at this point, it doesn't seem like you have many options. After solving some problems in Santa Monica and navigating a haunted hotel, eventually you're put on the trail of the Ankaran sarcophagus, an ancient coffin that, depending on who you ask, contains either an ancient antediluvian vampire, the end of the world, or nothing. But it's pretty clear that LaCroix is obsessed with this thing, and he wants that shit open.
Why won't it open, Beckett? And you, I thought you said it looked as if it had been opened on the Dane. I want it open!
During your quest, the Anarchs will let you know about their distrust for LaCroix, whether you ask them or not. It doesn't help that Nines grew up during the Great Depression, so he's hated the elite for quite some time. Nines also seems to have your back, saving your life twice. Naturally, the Sabbat are angry that you exist, so they're a persistent enemy that needs to be dealt with. After helping Mercurio get his stolen astrolite back, blowing up a Sabbat warehouse, running into an enigmatic archaeologist, Beckett, and solving a sibling rivalry, he then asks you to check up on Alistair Grout, the Malkavian Primogen, who are nuts, by the way, in case you forgot.
It seems Alistair Grout, the Malkavian Primogen, has either forgotten how to answer his phone, or is missing.
And when you arrive at the mansion, you see Nines run out, which is weird. And as you're searching the house, Alistair Grout has some audio dialogues, which are brilliantly voice acted. They give us a little bit of lore on the vampire races.
I am thinking of one unfortunate phenomenon in particular, of unique interest to my station, both as a professional and as a sufferer of this vampiric condition. It seems the stream of time has begun to erode the moorings of my chosen course of study, for the methodologies that gave birth to psychology are slowly disappearing.
We find his frozen wife, who he tried to save by inventing a vampirism cure, but he was obviously too late. A vampire hunter appears and burns down the mansion, but he claims that he didn't kill Grout.
Grout is dead? Pity it could not be by my hand.
So the suspicion is cast on Nines, which leaves the Anarchs without their de facto leader. The blood hunt for Nines is now on. LaCroix now wants you to go to a museum where the Ankaran sarcophagus was transferred.
I would like you to bring it back here, for safekeeping.
Beckett shows up, again, and the sarcophagus has been stolen. Again. And LaCroix isn't happy.
Stolen? How?
The assumption is that Gary, the leader of the Nosferatu, stole the sarcophagus for himself. Since the Nosferatu specialize in this kind of subterfuge, and LaCroix had asked him to get its location when it was removed from the ship. The only problem in trying to find Gary is that the Nosferatu are extremely secretive, and they live deep, deep, deep in the sewers. Oh boy. Not only that, the Nosferatu in general haven't been seen around Hollywood as of late. So we're going to go to Hollywood to find Gary and the Nosferatu. In Hollywood we meet Isaac, an anarchist who is in the film industry. He's a little bit more refined than your run-of-the-mill anarchist, and he demands a tribute from the fledgeling. He wants a certain VHS tape tracked down and delivered to him.
Last week I paid for a certain item, a movie, and this evening I got an email saying that the seller is ready to deliver it. Unfortunately, he's become a bit paranoid all of a sudden.
After doing some sleuthing, you find the tape in the coffin belonging to a long-dead actress. After returning to Isaac and playing the tape, it's a snuff film, and it's pretty disturbing. Yeah, those arms for legs dudes, you're gonna see a lot of them from here on in. So, we're on the trail of Death Mask Productions, the supposed distributor of the snuff film, because the one we have is incomplete. We're led to a tape seller a payphone, an internet cafe with one of the worst infestation problems I've ever seen. At the end, we get a bit of info from a witness. Both you and Isaac watch the full tape, and Isaac gives us the lead.
The house in the tape, I know it. It's in the hills. King's Way, if I'm not mistaken.
So we go to the house in the hills, and this place is home to a Samisi, another kind of vampire race. And it's really fucking gross. Unfortunately, he's home, and he's also gross.
Tell me, child, are you scared? Do I frighten you?
After dealing with that, the house is conveniently connected to the sewers. This section sucks. Not only does this one go on for ages, it's a bit of a maze, where everything starts to look the same. You have some new mechanics that are unclear and only appear in this section. If you were smart enough to get the plus patch version of the game, you can skip it. Unfortunately, I am not. Anytime the game forces you through a long combat section, it's a little rough. And at this point, the game is going to be mostly long combat sections. Oh boy. So we reach the Nosferatu, the eyes and ears of the vampire world. Gary attempts to freak us out.
I'm over here, boss. Wait, maybe I'm over here. Behind you, boss. Oh!
He wants us to get one of his agents back from Chinatown, in exchange for the location of the sarcophagus. He also gives us the lowdown on the Kuei Jin, the vampires of the East, who differ greatly from your standard kindred vampire. They also have the ability to become a really shitty boss fight, which we'll get to that. Chinatown is our last hub. Here we meet the head of the Kuei Jin, Ming Zhao, and we learn how they differ from the standard K-Knight vampire.
The second breath, our rebirth into the supernatural form. It is a spiritual awakening, not some lowly blood ritual meant to spread a despicable curse.
Ming Zhao leads us towards Wong Ho, a businessman, who might just know where our missing Nosferatu is. Wong Ho wants us to find his kidnapped daughter before he helps us.
If you bring her back to me, I will help you in any way that I can.
So, we have to find a girl to find a guy who will lead us to a guy so that this guy might tell us where the sarcophagus is. Right. After surviving a triad nightclub and running through a vampire experiment room courtesy of an evil corporation, we get our missing Nosferatu friend back to his home. A quick call to Gary leads us to the Giovanni mansion, where you can mingle with the aristocrats, who probably have their own pretentious LinkedIn pages, I'm sure. Beneath the mansion is a crypt, with zombies, and more zombies, and even more zombies. I really like this game, but the back end is rough. At the very end of the crypt, two Kuei Jin guard the sarcophagus, and they reveal that LaCroix is secretly working with the Kuei Jin.
There is an alliance between your leader LaCroix and Mistress Ming Zhao. You violate the agreement.
Betrayal. Yeah, stab in the back.
So we have to fight off the Double Dragon refugees, and they have a bit of health, but nothing an automatic shotgun can't deal with.
Nice.
Now we're back at LaCroix's office with the sarcophagus, along with Beckett, who has agreed to work with LaCroix because he believes that the coffin has nothing important in it. When LaCroix is confronted about the betrayal.
Betrayal? Yeah, I'm stretched on the rack.
He straight up denies it.
And you believed them? They've been trying to take over LA for years.
Unfortunately, we can't open it. So, Beckett tells us about a guy who might be able to. But he's been kidnapped by the Society of Leopold in a monastery, which is heavily guarded. Oh, for fuck's sake. So we kill a bunch of guards and the vampire hunter from before. Now we get the lowdown on the sarcophagus from Dr. Anderson Johannes. Even though the game is feeling rushed, the dialogue is still incredible.
The goddess on the outside of the sarcophagus was Lamastu. In Assyrian myth, Lamastu was an evil demoness who preyed on humans. Many people cite her as the mother of vampire myth.
The vampire hunter then blows up the base in a last-ditch effort, but we get out alive with the doctor. In our absence, LaCroix's building is attacked, presumably by the Sabbat. We run into the gross Samisi guy again and actually finish him off this time. Ming Zhao shows up to explain herself. Turns out LaCroix was the one who framed Nines, with the help of a shapeshifter and a fresh kindred. You. Throughout the game, some hints suggest that LaCroix wanted to drain the blood of the ancient vampire in the sarcophagus to gain his power, and subsequently use that power to rule all of the vampires. It's clear that Ming Zhao and the other leaders don't want this to happen, and she reveals that the Kuei Jin have the key to the sarcophagus. If you decide to confront LaCroix about this betrayal, he just denies it. He then suggests an alliance with the Anarchs, so that they can defeat the Kuei Jin. Beckett shows up with a change of mind.
Don't open it. Whatever you do, do not open the Ankaran sarcophagus.
Now that all the pieces are in play, the fledgling needs to decide who to trust, who to keep at arm's length, and who needs to be taken out. So, at this point, you're watching my character's specific ending play out. Who do you side with? A self-obsessed aristocrat? A rebel who preaches freedom through anarchy? An Eastern vampire with a superiority complex? Or someone else entirely? Well, that's up to you, really. We arrive at the bar with an offer, and the Anarchs are skeptical of LaCroix's alliance, to say the least.
LaCroix, an alliance with us? Huh. Has he... You're fucking with me, right? Do I look like a goddamn source of amusement for you?
I decide to tell them about LaCroix's betrayal, and Damsel then leads us to Nines' location, in Griffith Park, which is home to something else. Werewolves in this universe are a really big problem for the kindred. The one that we fight is considered a cub, which, yeah. After scraping out a win, somehow, we escape with Nines, and Smiling Jack returns to get us out of Dodge. Because we told LaCroix that we knew about his deceptive plan, the blood hunt is now on us. So we make a mad dash to the cab. And now we're in the cab driver's car, and the guy who's been casually driving us around starts talking a little more. And he seems to know an awful lot about our predicament.
It sounds as if there are many who seek to sway the children of Cain to their side. Many who believe they shape the destiny of the blood.
There's something about this guy.
Really makes you think.
He ends up helping you rethink your situation carefully. And with his guidance, I decided to be loyal to the Camarilla, but under new leadership. Under Maximilian Strauss. Early on in the game, you can run some errands for him, and from what I gathered from those meetings and conversations, I think he's best suited to lead the Camarilla in LA. The first time I beat the game, I sided with Strauss. This time, when I beat the game, I sided with Strauss. There's a reason they put him that high on the balcony. He sees everyone, takes everything into careful consideration, and has the perspective to make careful choices for the good of all the vampires. He's not some self-righteous prick or directionless anarchist, or some Far Eastern racist. So, Strauss has a plan. Go to the Kuei Jin, kill Ming Zhao, get the key, kill LaCroix, seal the coffin away, and wait for all of this to blow over. Right. Naturally, the Kuei Jin base is a long combat section. Naturally. And Ming Zhao morphs into her final boss form. This boss is fucking horrible. You know that feeling you get when you're fighting a boss, and you're convinced that what you're doing is wrong? Surely it should be taking more damage. Maybe there's a gimmick. Possibly a weakness I'm missing. No, it's just one of those fights. I hope you saved all your blood packs and brought some bullets, because otherwise, you're not winning. Someone once told me that they stopped playing here, and honestly, I don't blame them. Somehow we defeat her and get the key. Our reward is another drawn-out long combat section, but to be fair, it is the last one. There's a great callback to the first main quest, where we use Astrolite to blow up an elevator. Then we fight the sheriff, LaCroix's personal bodyguard, in his base form. Then his final form. After he's killed, we get to confront LaCroix, who shows us how desperate he's become. He tries to use Dominate Mind on you, which doesn't work. Thank God this is not a physical fight, because beating LaCroix at his own game is poetic justice.
It's also not a shitty boss fight.
The key! Don't you understand? This city needs a leader! The Kuei Jin will kill us all! With the power that's inside that sarcophagus, I can protect this city! Give it to me!
Strauss shows up to congratulate us. He decides to keep the coffin in a secret location and throw away the key, which is definitely the right call.
Please excuse me for a moment. Yes. Yes, I see. Of course, my lord. It will be done.
Oh. Yeah, okay. Maybe he is a little nuts. Oh, shit.